Video, I'll be talking about OLlaMA and how it can run LLMs locally and remotely. So here's a snapshot of it working remotely in Google Colab, and then here is it running locally. And the local version, I tested out 3 different models, and in the remote version, I only tested out 1. In the remote version on Google Colab, I had to use a workaround to get the terminal running, since the free version doesn't really allow you access to the terminal, so you can use the colab xterm library to have an interactive terminal running within the notebook. And I asked it some questions about the presidential election in the US, and in conclusion, I found out that it assumed that the election was for the US, even though I didn't necessarily point out that I wanted to know about the election in the US. I also asked it questions about specific dates, and it only had outdated information about the election. However, it did give interesting details and referred to actual people who were in the government. So it did a decent job, and I like that OLlaMA is also functioning within the Colab environment. And then in the local version of OLlaMA, it was easier to initialize since you install it once locally and then it's already running. So you can start making models and calls to the API pretty quickly without having to initialize anything. And this is the local notebook. If you're using Python, you would have to import the request and JSON libraries, since you are calling a API as if it was a website, except you're using localhost. And there's no need to install xterm since you're calling the API directly without using the terminal. And I gave all models the same prompt since I wanted to evaluate them similarly. So this is the way that you would make calls to the API. You give the model a name if you want to create the model using the create API/create endpoint, and then in the JSON data you would create a model file similar to a Docker file. You would give it the keywords from and system. The from keyword is the name of the model, and then the system keyword is a system prompt that it's going to be functioning all the time while you're chatting with the model. And I asked it to take the role of an avid journalist who always cites whenever asked questions about the news. And I did this for the OLlaMA 3, for Gemma 2B, and the Llama 3 models. Gemma 2B and Llama are primarily text models, and OLlaMA is a multimodal image and text model. And they responded with 200, so they were created successfully. And then just to make sure, I checked the status of the models using the API tags endpoint, and it listed all the models as being created. So next, I'm going to show you how to use the OLlaMA API to run inference on the models. And I'd like to note that since I'm doing a simple presentation, I didn't use the stream API. If you're using the stream API, you can make consistent calls to the model, having a consistent context based on the previous inputs. But I'll just be using the non-stream request version since I just want to chat with the model and simplify the process. So I asked it, what is the most recent news you have about the 2024 election? Provide specific dates. And I asked this to the Llama 3 model, the local one without stream, using the API chat endpoint. And then extracted the system content and I presented it in HTML format, and then now you can read it pretty easily, and it understood its system prompt. It gave information. However, it was from March 2023. So it had very detailed response and long response. However, it did respond very well. And it was outdated, however. For Gemma, it gave a non-response, and it basically said it doesn't have access to information or real-time information, and all it did was provide links to news journals to do your own research, basically, because it doesn't have any information. So I'm assuming that either it doesn't have information because it has outdated information, or it was instructed not to provide information for business purposes. And then lastly, in the multimodal chat model, I asked it the same question. And this one has probably the worst response out of the three, where it says its knowledge was last updated in September 2021, which was over 3 years ago, and that it can't provide any information. And then finally, although the multimodal model did not have any information, and it has outdated information relating to the news and the presidential debate for 2024, I still found an image about the debate online of Kamala and Trump, and I want to see if it can understand the picture. So I encoded the image into the base 64, since that's what is required as input to the OLlaMA model. And then I asked it to describe who are the people in this image. And it responded with multiple responses. Many of them were wrong, and it took me about 5 to 6 tries to get this response, which I thought was okay. It says, this image features a man and a woman, both of whom appear to be quite old. They might be siblings or friends, possibly sharing a meal or at an elderly care facility. So it says they cannot specify identities, and it does not recognize the people. So it did a okay job. In previous responses, it did worse. It said that there was children, or that there were many males or many females. So it still could use some work to get a more accurate response out of this model. And this is a community model, the OLlaMA 3 model, so it might not be updated as frequently as the models of Gemma or Llama. So yeah, this was my presentation of using OLlaMA remotely and locally. Thank you for watching.